Thanks so much for listening to No Lions Here with me, Big Panda. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to No Lions Here. My name is Big Panda, and I'm a recovering sex addict. Today's episode is in partnership with Pondoffs Anonymous, the podcast through the treatment center where I work at, because they're also going to be using this episode for one of their episodes, because we've got back on the show. If you remember from a couple episodes ago, we had Jakob Miller on, the executive director and my big boss here at Illinois Recovery Center, giving us a little background on how the treatment center started, what the model is that we run on here, and all of that kind of stuff. So today we've got Jakob back on. Thank you for coming back on, Jakob. Really appreciate it.
The video should be better this time, right?
It should be. Yes, we
tried something new.
We've got a different angle, a different way that I'm working it this time around, so it's not that awkward angle where you're only seeing half of my face and Jakob is 10 feet away from the camera. So it looks better today, so we'll go with that. So yeah, Jakob, welcome back to No Lions Here, man. Again, in partnership with Pondoffs Anonymous for this one. And today, Jakob, we kind of alluded to it on the last episode that you were on. You do a class of kind of like the science of addiction.
Right.
And so we talked about, hey, want to get that on tape, come back in, because I think it's really interesting. I got to sit through this kind of back when I was first starting. That was one of the groups that I got put on me that I got to sit through.
The document for me, yeah.
Jakob got to do the fun part of the group, and that was talk in front of the group. But then I had to do the back end clerical work and put the notes in for it. But no, man, it was really interesting. I really liked the group, really liked the subject matter. It's like really easy to follow, and I think that it helps that you're not a scientist. I think if you were a scientist, if you were a scientist, it'd probably go over people's heads a little bit. But you do it in a way that like people can really relate to.
Right. I really wanted to create, because I like science of addiction. I like the neuroscience. I like all that. I like the disease model. Fuck, I don't understand it. Not even close. And every time I watch YouTube videos or went to seminars or had it in treatment myself, like I check out instantly. It's just they use some big word, and I'm just like, nope, can't retain it. So I wanted to like do it where I could teach it and understand it in my own terms, right?
Yeah.
So that's a good disclaimer. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a heroin addict that teaches something that he had to learn his way. So.
Yeah, don't fact check us in the comments, because again, look, we're just trying to do the best that we can here, right. You know. And again, what you talk about really does make sense. So I'm excited to get into it, excited to have it documented, because again, it's simple, right? You keep it simple, right? That's something that I try to preach to these guys a lot. It's like, hey, keep recovery simple.
Right.
We overcomplicate the shit out of it.
I said to a new admission last night. So it's going to be hard. I promise you, it's simple.
Simple. Just keep it simple. Keep it simple. Keep it spiritual, and you'll be all right. So yeah, man. Let's get into it. That's yeah. This is like, it's funny. So right. Jakob and I were talking about this earlier, and I was thinking about this on the drive home, and I'm like, well, Jacob's just going to be presenting this for 45 to 50 minutes. What am I going to be doing? I'm just going to be sitting here. But no, I'll jump in and ask questions, because it's actually been a while since I've sat through this group.
Right.
So,
and it is like when I do it for clients, it's they're allowed to shout out, they're allowed to ask questions, they're allowed to counter what I said or if they believe differently, because I want that dialogue going back and forth. Yep. So questions, disagreements, relatability, all that's like good for this group. So yeah, I really want it as much. It's very much a lecture style group, and I want to get away from that feel a bit when I do it, because lectures are boring. It's hard to keep engagement, at least for me, when somebody's talking at me the whole time.
Yes, I'm very much like that as well. I get bored. Right. People just sit there and talk. I'm like, I'm falling asleep. Yeah, dude, like meetings are terrible. If I have to sit for more than 15 minutes and I'm not talking, I'll fall asleep.
I class clown it, you know. Yeah. I made it bad for the guy next to me, not just me. But no, so yeah, so like me and Alex kind of said, this is like my science of the disease of addiction, mix some of the neuroscience to it. It's basically, I originally designed this group. Fuck, I guess I can cuss on your podcast.
Yeah,
gotta.
Oh man,
careful. I'm so used to Pondoffs and Knives where like there's no barrier to what I say. Gotta remember, other people might disagree with that. So I created this group.
That's funny because that's actually, you say that in the beginning of the groups.
Yeah, I'm going to cuss.
If anybody has a problem with it, I apologize.
Yeah,
I'm going to cuss. So
I'm working on it. Not really, but it's nice when people hear that. They get less mad at you when you cuss.
I'm working on it.
So yeah, so I created this group when I helped Kevin Button, which he's our family director here. He's been on Panos Anonymous too. When we made a family program at another facility. And my job was I would talk to families about like recovery, addiction, and I wanted to create a group so they can start understanding addiction as well, or at least finding a common grounds to accept it, right?
Yeah.
So I do a lot of comparison to like other things and like other diseases, stuff like that. And once I started that is when I really started getting so much benefit in my own recovery from understanding my disease.
Yeah.
And so I always started this group with families. I do it with the clients now. So this is my client tailored one as well. This isn't really what I did for families, but similar.
I love that. I love that this was born for helping families, right? Because we see that a lot, right? The families are frustrated. Why can't you just stop?
Yeah.
Right. They don't understand. And I love that we do the family programming here to give the family members, hey, some insight of, hey, this isn't a moral failing. Right. This isn't because your loved one's a piece of shit. It's simply, this is a disease and this is what they're dealing with. Here's some information.
100%. Like that's breaks a lot of the stigmas that way.
Yeah.
Gives them some type of understanding. But I would always ask, beginning of the group, do with the clients, just like a show of hands, like who here believes addiction's a disease? Typically, I'll get about at least 90% of the clients straight up yes. When it's clients, I might get one or two just like, like I don't know. Rarely do I get a no with clients. With families, it was almost the same, but I'd always get a couple no's. And that, hope that edits out with Rivers. And I know when I was in treatment, I was the shoot hand straight up when they asked me that question. Who believes addiction is a disease? Hand straight up. And I remember this guy asked me one time, why? Like, why do you believe it's a disease? And the whole reality is my only answer to that was, you're smarter than I am, and you said it was. That was it, right? So when I started creating this group, I remembered that, like thinking that. So I said, well, what makes anything a disease? So I just started looking at the factors of a disease and comparing it to addiction and going from there. So really, for anything to be a disease, it has to have certain characteristics that it falls under, right? So my disclaimer for this too, we already said at the beginning, I'm not a scientist, not a doctor. This is all based off my own personal research. A lot of it is backed by DSM-5, science. There's going to be a couple spots in here that are like Jacob's theory. I'll throw out my disclaimers for what that is. I do it for the clients as well, so they don't like, this is a fact. No, this is Jacob's theory. Hasn't been proven wrong yet, so I'm sure the comment section will find a way.
The internet is undefeated.
But please do, because I want this group is always going to evolve. But actually prove me wrong, though. Don't just throw out your opinion. So the first category of this is for something to be a disease, it's treatable but not curable, right? So addiction is treated. There's treatment centers. You can get it treated, but you'll have it for the rest of your life. Well, also what that means is that this disease can get put into remission, right? There is a point of treatment and recovery where your disease is no longer active in your life. Don't mean you don't have it. And I always compare that to like type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes typically stems from poor lifestyle, unhealthy choices, eating sugars constantly, not working out, not exercising, just unhealthy lifestyle. And you get diabetes, but with a change of lifestyle, so you go back to eating healthy, you go back to working out, exercising, like you can put your diabetes in remission where you're not insulin dependent anymore. But if you go back to eating sugars and not working out, your diabetes comes back, it's flared up, it hits you at full force. Yeah. Addiction is the exact same way.
But you're saying addiction's unhealthy lifestyle?
Yeah, very.
Okay. All right. Just clearing that up, man. I just wanted to clear that up.
Drugs? It was not healthy, man. If somebody say I'm using drugs, I'm living a healthy lifestyle.
You're lying to yourself.
Yeah, you're beyond my help at this moment. You're not even at the pre-contemplation stage.
Is there even one before pre-contemplation? I don't think so.
That one. Drugs are good for me. So it's just like diabetes. So when you look at it with a changed lifestyle, you keep taking your medicine, the lifestyles would change it. That's why we talk about like my recovery. I always tell people my medicine for it is a 12-step program. Yeah. Like I do a 12-step program. It tells me to talk to other addicts. It tells me to go to meetings. It tells me to work on step work. It tells me to read my literature, do a speaker tape. That is my medicine for my disease, right? that is my lifestyle change that's going to make me better.
Yeah.
Then it comes in the spiritual growth of like no longer lying, no longer manipulating, no longer putting my will above anybody else's, no longer forcing control over anything outside of my own actions. Like that is my healthy lifestyle change. That's my medicine. This next one is the one that actually helped me a lot. Mine. This is probably where I'm going to get a lot of the disease model gets a lot of pushback from certain individuals, is that a disease is a primary. So what that means is that addiction is not a symptom of anything else. So for me, when I first time I ever like faced my addiction, I used to self-medicate because of my trauma. I was somebody that had a lot of PTSD. I had night terrors for years and years of my life. And my theory was, why shoot up heroin so I can sleep at night and I don't have night terrors, right? Because I'm fucked up and faded out, not really sleeping. And the first treatment center I went to was a drug treatment center, but it's very trauma focused. It was basically a trauma model treatment facility. Not saying there's anything bad about those, but so this is just my disclaimer. If you do go to a facility like that, please don't do what I did. And I went in there thinking like, well, if my trauma is fixed, I won't be an addict. And that place was amazing for my trauma. I think I was there for almost 80 days. Within 2 weeks of after detox, like residential there, I no longer had night terrors. Like the therapy I got there, the EMDR therapist I had, like it was fucking amazing. It did wonders for my trauma. Mm-hmm. I used to have crippling panic attacks every single day where like on the floor, I couldn't breathe or move. And after about a month there, I no longer had those. I get them like once a year now. Did phenomenal trauma work. I also used heroin 45 minutes after leaving that treatment facility, because on their addiction side of that treatment center, I did not pay a single they had classes and stuff where I did not pay attention to it. Trauma is my issue, not drugs. It's the trauma. And I don't want to say I cured my trauma, but fuck it, it fixed it.
You worked through it. Yeah, you processed it, worked through it.
Good. And still used 45. And mind you, I had a 30-minute plane ride from Chicago to St. Louis in that 45 minutes. You got to focus on addiction as its own entity. It doesn't mean don't get help for the trauma, the mental health, the anxiety. It means you got to work on those together. There's nothing wrong with doing both of those at the same time or one before the other. If you're going to do one at a time, I would say focus on addiction first, because we're all well aware you can't really focus on trauma and mental health issues if you're using drugs.
True.
It just don't work that way. So addiction, I would call the most important to work on first. So it's a primary. This is usually when I ask clients if they have any questions, because I got to flip my page or look at it, you know.
I have no questions.
Perfect.
I have no questions.
Thank you.
No questions. That is interesting though. So like, because like I'm a big believer in the trauma model around addiction. You know, I see that it's, and not everybody's going to buy into that. I just know for me, and looking at my trauma and how that trauma really did lead to the addiction. So I think that it's interesting.
So the way I would look at it is trauma is a risk factor for it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So I believe basically in our brain, we have a switch. That switch is addiction. There's going to be outside things that can happen. You can be born with it on, right? Born an addict, just all those traits. Or a life event, a negative life event. Typically, trauma is going to be a huge part of that. Can happen in your life, and it activates the switch, and now you have addiction, right? Yeah. It doesn't. But the reason I don't like the trauma model fully is that there's a lot of people with trauma that are not addicts.
Sure,
there's addicts out there.
I would say everybody has some sort of trauma.
Right. The numbers just don't. And there's a lot of people. I have met people with addictions without major trauma, like little traumas. You know what we mean? Everybody has a little tease in their life all throughout it, but not anything major, huge ever happened to them. Yeah, it's still an addict. It's just basically an activating feature of it.
Yeah,
is what I would
that
call
makes
trauma.
sense. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, that totally activates it.
And there's like divorces. That's a big one for like a lot, definitely older men. Like they don't have a drinking problem till they're 50.
They lose somebody in their life. Grief, mom dies, dad dies, brother dies. Because we've had clients like that.
Oh yeah. And like they're older. Like I never had a drinking problem until I was 55, and now I'm, they're drinking themselves to death every day. It flipped the light switch on, and once that switch is on, it just don't come off. So I guess that was the primary, right? So the next thing is, this is where like my disclaimer will be too as well, where a lot of Jakob theory comes into it, then backed by DSM-5 on certain things. But now I'll separate that. So the next one is there's a assigned set of symptoms when we talk about a disease. Any disease out there has symptoms that everybody with that same disease shares. Really, the main one, like the DSM-5 focuses on, is like the use beyond negative consequences. So you use something that happened to you because of your use, you use again, right? And
Yeah.
again and again and again, depending on your severity of addiction. I very much believe that there's 4 more symptoms to this disease that I believe we should focus on. I believe treatment centers, this should be their main topics. I believe understanding these in our life is the best relapse prevention you could ever have, because what really sparked me in this, like looking at our symptoms, was really like the recovery community. Every recovery program that I have seen, from Smart Recovery, 12-step to Dharma Recovery, they all agree one thing: relapses happen well before the first use.
Yeah.
Right. Every recovery community in the world says that line of, you used, they're like, well, your relapse happened probably 2 months before that. That's when it started. So I want to look at, well, why are we looking so heavy at relapse prevention at that point of use, and not what happens 2 months before?
Yeah.
Right. Where does that start? That's where I want to start addressing it. And a lot of this actually comes from the recovery program Narcotics Anonymous and their literature, but they classify a lot as obsession, compulsive, self-centered, and irrational thinking. I look at those as symptoms. Most, like, before I really started digging into it, I always looked at those more as like character defects. You know what I mean? Defense mechanisms almost. Yeah. And not so much as my symptoms. But once I started identifying my symptoms, I started getting into a lot more solutions with it.
Yeah.
Because I could never get rid of it, right? Those like irrational thinking. I'm going to have irrational thinking till the day I die.
Yeah.
That's my disease. And I'm going to kind of give you like my personal meaning of those words too, kind of compare them into my own life and like addicts I see too, just so, because I strongly believe understanding these symptoms are going to be what keeps people from relapse. Because I'm a person that believes relapsing is use. Like, once you use, the period is down, the relapse is over, you're in active addiction, right? Those 2 months before it, when this starts, 3 months, however long it is, like, now you're in relapse.
Yeah.
You haven't relapsed, but you're in it. So the first one, like being obsession. Basically, obsession to me is just whenever my brain is taken away from the now. If I'm sitting in this podcast and I'm worried about work right now, or I'm worried about what I'm doing after it, I'm obsessing over that now, because my thoughts are taken away from my in the now moment that I need to be in, right? We're doing a podcast. I need to be here. It'd be fucked up if I wasn't, right? That's not doing service to anyone. And a lot of times with obsession, definitely in early recovery, we see it really in 2 factors. It's going to be like future tripping or dwelling in the past. It's always one of those 2. I was a very, very bad future tripper. That's where my disease kept me all the time in early recovery. The next one going to be self-centeredness. That's where I think a lot of people, like, they just want to say selfish. When we talk about that word I believe is much, much broader than just being selfish. Self-centered is basically, I believe I'm the center of the universe.
Yeah.
I'm the cause and effect of everything around me. If I'm leading a group, somebody walks out of it, I caused that person to walk. I said something they didn't like. They were offended. My group's not good. They hate it. They left the room. They're taking a piss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going pee. It's all they're doing. But my brain says it's about me. I caused that. That's that self-centeredness of my disease, right? It's even the factor of like, I'm only hurting myself. Why do people so worried about being like, this is me? It's self-centered, right? It's that selfish side of it all. And then the biggest one for me too is the irrational thinking. So anything harmful, don't make sense, and there's no logic and facts to back it up. For me, my irrational thinking comes very much heavy in like complete sentences. You're a complete failure. You'll never do anything right. Right.
I'm not enough.
Not enough. Right. You'll never succeed. Whatever it is, like, those are my irrational thoughts, but they're always complete. You know, it's never like, oh, you're gonna be fuck up sometimes. Like, that would be a nice thought to have. My thoughts don't do that. You know,
they don't.
You fucking all, you suck. You know,
and period, and all be all. Yeah. That's it.
Never done nothing good ever. Yeah. Right? You're a waste of everything. That's irrational thinking, right? Because in all of our lives, we can look back and find a couple good things we've done, but our thoughts do that completeness. So that's irrational thinking. And the last one is compulsive. So basically means when I put action towards any of those. So when he walks in my group, I think it's me, and I yell at him for leaving group. I'm being compulsive, right? If I'm obsession over something, or if I'm having those irrational thinking, I just put action towards it. Not being compulsive. That's where that is. That's where use is as well, right? Typically, if you've relapsed, you're listening to this, or know somebody's relapsed, whatever it is, if you talk to them, I have yet to meet an addict that couldn't pinpoint one of those that happened months before.
Yeah. And it almost sounds like the knee-jerk reaction compulsion.
Oh,
like
yeah. Well,
something
yeah.
happened and now I'm immediately reacting to it.
Right. It's just you're going back to those old behaviors,
Mm.
So we want to really focus on these symptoms as like the self-centered, the irrational thinking, and the obsession, because those are before action happens.
Yeah.
A lot of times as addicts, at least for me, when I put action in my bad behaviors, I blow shit up. I self-sabotage very, very hard. And those symptoms too, because one thing about this disease, which we're going to get into on the next section though, is that it's fatal, right? I don't need drugs to kill myself, right? My disease does not need drugs to end my life. And I don't want anybody getting confused. This is a fatal disease. The outcome that addiction wants from the person that it has it is to kill them, right? If that's through overdoses, if that's through suicide, if that's through whatever it is, right? That's what our disease wants. It does that with those symptoms. Use is just the quickest and easiest way that it can do it to us. But if you dwell in any of those, it will kill us, right?
Yeah.
Or self-sabotage is a key word as well. And like the final symptom, as we kind of use the use beyond negative consequences, I like to say on that one is basically I like to take anything outside of myself and fix my insides.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
If I do that, I will destroy my life with it. I don't care if it's a book. I'll stay up all night and not sleep because I got a book that I like. I'll call in to work, not go to work because I like reading a certain book. I don't want to miss out because I obsess over it, right? I get self-centered about it. I get irrational about it. I self-destruct my life over that book.
Yeah.
So that's the signs of the symptoms of it.
Yeah, that makes this. So whenever people ask me to explain addiction to them,
Mm-hmm.
I say to them, this is the one of the best and simplest ways of saying it is, you've got a person sitting in a bar. Bartender hands them beer and then hands them a list of consequences. A normal person, a normie, is going to look at those list of consequences and say, you know what? I'm good. Bring me a water. I'm going to push this beer to the side. An addict will see that beer or whatever it is and see the list of consequences and go, nah, I don't care about the consequences. I'm going to drink this beer. That's the best way for me to describe addiction.
That's always how I explain addicts' insanity. At least in the 12-step model, we talk about being insane and getting restored to sanity. Is that like the definition, the Einstein definition is like do the same thing over and over and expect different results. Addicts, that's not our insanity. Our insanity is doing the same thing over and over and not caring what the consequences are.
Yeah.
We know what's going to happen. We know if we use, we could die. We know if we drink and drive, we could go to prison or kill somebody. We know that. We don't care at that moment. After, though, right, you get high to that guilt and shame kicks in and it hits you. But leading up to that moment, we just do not care. And then one of the ways I always explain this to families, when I explain addiction, right, one of them to get a view of it. And this is one of those ones I haven't really corrected wrong. Our addict brain versus like a quote unquote normal human's brain, we always look at use as the reason to do other things. So I always give the example to like family members, like when you go to a party, right? Normal people, quote, quote, say, I'm going to go have fun, hang out with friends, play games, dance, socialize, talk to some girls, and I'm going to drink. My brain goes, I'm going to drink so I can talk to girls. I'm going to drink so I can have fun. I'm going to drink so I can play these games. I'm going to drink so I can dance, right? Drinking was always a solution to me. It got me to a solution. And when I talk to non-addicts, a lot of them always say the first thing, right? I'm going to have fun, dance, drink. What that drink was last. Addicts is always drinking so I can do.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference in how our brains are wired.
That makes sense, yeah.
And one of the next things we kind of talked about a little bit, just addiction is progressive, right? Mm-hmm. No addict is using the day they come in the treatment like the first day they started. Your tolerance increases, your negative consequences increases. We do more drugs. The way we do them gets harsher. What we do gets worse, right? Even with alcohol, you might start with beer and wine coolers. By the end, you're drinking Pavov vodka, a handle of a plastic jug. It just progresses, and it will progress till death, right?
Yeah.
Got to remember that. That is one of the things I want to drive into a lot of people's heads is that it is a fatal disease. Mm-hmm. Untreated, this disease will kill us. But the beautiful side of it is it is treatable. And the next part of a disease is which I go into like the next section of my group is a disease also chemically changes us, right? I'm trying to see my writing on took notes for this.
Did you ask ChatGPT to help you with those notes?
I did, yeah. Mind you, so another disclaimer, the group could have started with this. Like, I have never written this group down. I've never recorded it. This has always been a group that's just in my head, right? People ask me for handouts. I'm like, I don't have handouts. I just say it. So I did write it down for this to take it serious. So, but basically, there's a neurological, a psychological change in us due to this disease, right? And that's kind of where like this gets very complicated when we talk about the science of the brain and the neuroscience behind it all. That's where I fall asleep. I don't know none of it. So this is also where we're gonna get some comments, probably like, oh, that's this part of the brain, or that's this, or this does that. I don't know. That's cool. You know, it's just too much for my brain to comprehend. So I really just focus on dopamine, right? Dopamine is the main chemical, I believe, that combines all of us addicts and humans, right? Because when you talk about like serotonin, that's another big one. Serotonin, what gives me serotonin is different than what gives you serotonin.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of people's like drug of choices come from. It's the serotonin that gives them. I did opiates because it gave me more serotonin than like uppers did, right? So I like downers more. Some people the complete opposite, whatever it is.
Yeah. See, I liked the speed. I like the amphetamines.
That give you more. I mean,
that,
more happy.
That gave the yes.
Opiates that made me more happy than speed did. Doesn't I'm an addict. I did a lot of speed in my life. So, but dopamine is the same, right? Coke gives you the same dopamine spike Coke gave me, right? Our natural levels of dopamine are very similar. There's gonna be a couple little differences, but basically the same. And in treatment, if you've been to treatment before, looked at anything about addiction, you've heard the word dopamine. I've heard that word a million times, but when I started doing this and like playing in this group, was the first time I ever found out why we have dopamine. Because one thing that's really amazing about the human brain, this also helped me with a lot of my feelings and shit too, is that our brain doesn't give us anything without a reason. It's like, I'm going to use like stress, right? Stress is a feeling that every human hates to have. Nobody wants to feel stress. But if you ask yourself, well, why do I have stress? Well, stress really originated back in like hunter and gatherers time when people didn't have enough food to last the winter. So they got this emotion stress to motivate them to go out and get more. So stress isn't a bad feeling. It's a motivational feeling.
Yeah.
So when you like change, like find out the reason why you have the emotion, it helps with emotions a lot. And that's the same thing with like dopamine, right? So dopamine is our pleasure chemical. It gives us pleasure. And you ask yourself, well, why does my brain want me to have pleasure? Right? It's a very important key here because what gives us dopamine is dopamine. That pleasure is our motivation for survival. Any survival skills out there, tasks, stuff like that, gives us dopamine. So if that's from sex, food, water, socializing with loved ones, getting a promotion at work, just being congratulated for doing good, progressing in life gives you dopamine because you're surviving better, giving you more survivor skills. Nowadays, there's a lot of unhealthy natural dopamine. Cell phones are fucking one of the worst, right? Gambling's a big one. There's a lot of just dopamine spikes we get unnaturally throughout the day that aren't survival skills that fuck with the human brain. We're going to save that for another podcast because that's when it gets very deep, right? I'm going to have some red. But I always just tell people for understanding of dopamine is like, one, just imagine those days that you wake up, you feel like shit, you're depressed, you have no motivation to get out of bed, you call in the work, you're not sick, right? You're just fucking wake up down. Your dopamine levels are like 40 that day. Then those days you wake up and you're like ready to kick today's ass, you're firing also, like you're ready for the fucking day. You're ready to go. Wake up, you piss excellent, you're fucking good to go.
Ricky Bobby.
Your dopamine levels are 60 that day. So our median is 50. 50 is our normal. Now imagine the day you won the lottery, right? You're on a beach. All your loved ones are taken care of. Everything that you need or want in life is met. Your children's children, all their needs in life are met. Your dopamine level would be 100. Our brain, that's our max natural dopamine our brain knows how to handle. It's not created, it's not made to really mess with anything over that 100. That's our max. And you bring drugs into the picture, right? Because if you're listening to this podcast, I'm assuming you've done drugs or know somebody that's done drugs, right?
You've got an unhealthy
habit somewhere. Sex is a big one here.
This big
is
one.
Very,
big
very,
one,
very
man.
similar.
Big one.
Addiction to drugs and addiction to sex are the same thing in this model, right?
Yes.
It feels good.
Yes.
Dopamine. It's pleasure. Dopamine. Yeah. You got pleasure by doing it.
Yeah.
And it's safe to say if you're listening to this podcast, you didn't do drugs once. You didn't just have sex once and decided to listen to a podcast like this. You or a loved one has done it over and over and over and probably got to some pretty bad rock bottoms, right? I know I never seeked out a recovery podcast till I was pretty fucking down and out,
Yeah.
So it's safe to say we repeated the habit. And when you look at the brain as well, with how it learns, right? I think that's very, very important here is your brain needs two things to learn: repetition and reward. Repeating a habit, getting a reward for it, right? It's how you train animals, right? You want a dog to learn a trick, you have them do the trick, you give them a treat, repeat, repeat, repeat. They now know how to roll over, right? Human brain, exact same way. Well, if I repeat the behavior of using drugs and I'm now being rewarded with dopamine as the reward for use, I don't just learn like a bad habit, like biting my nails or whatever it is, clicking a pen or something. My brain goes, this is giving me dopamine. Dopamine equals survival. I just now learned a survival skill. And that is now the rewriting of my chemical making in my brain, because I just added a survival skill into my making, right? Quote unquote, the normal.
Hey guys, I just want to take a minute to share something deeply personal and transformative in my journey of recovery. I've been where you might be right now, struggling with the weight of addiction and feeling lost. But there's a place that offered me a new beginning, a place I truly believe in. It's called Begin Again Institute. At Begin Again, they understand the deep-rooted trauma behind addiction. Their 14-day intensive program for men tackles the neurobiological aspects of addiction head-on. It's not just about breaking a habit. It's about understanding and healing the underlying trauma that formed it in the first place. And for those who have been impacted by betrayal, Begin Again extends care to partners of addicts too. Their partner support program is offered at no additional cost to the family and runs alongside the men's intensive. This program helps participants gain an understanding of the trauma they've experienced and sets them on their own path to healing. If you or someone you love are grappling with sexual addiction, pornography addiction, or intimacy issues, Begin Again Institute can be that pivotal step towards recovery and a new lease on life. Remember, you can't go back and change the past, but it's never too late to begin again. To learn more about their life-changing program, visit beginagaininstitute.com or call 720-776-9076 to reserve your spot in the next 2-week intensive. I promise, it'll be the best call that you ever make for yourself. Stay strong, keep fighting, and keep tuning in to No Lions Here for more conversations about recovery, resilience, and hope.
People, they don't have that survival skill. It's not written into their brain. It's in mine now. And when we talk about the dopamine from drugs, I think it's really important to understand what kind of dopamine it's giving us, right? So one is unnatural. It's not a natural survival skill dopamine. And I'm going to kind of go like high tier drug to lower tier. I'm going to make it kind of quick, but like, so the highest tier is amphetamines, meth, crack, cocaine, some type of speed is the highest dopamine spiking drug. That is a spike of 1100 to 1500.
Jesus. In our the natural body is 100.
Yeah, that's
100. That's the most we could get.
That's perfection.
And we're never really going to hit that 100.
No.
Right? Because that's, again, like you said, everything's taken care of. Right. So
Right.
just for reference
50,
there,
you're hitting 50.
The highest we might hit is what, upper 90s?
Like 98 typically. And then, which is actually food, by the way, not sex, for your sex addict listener, which is, I'm sure everyone
which is
like,
interesting.
What the fuck?
Well, it's actually, I've heard that sex is the largest dopamine hit the body can get naturally.
It's actually food, but
probably they're probably
food is a more, the way I like when I looked at it, food is more like longer, higher spike, like kind of like gradually gets up to it, where sex is like 96 boom.
Because that's interesting, because like an orgasm, right?
Yeah,
an orgasm is fucking,
it floods you.
It hits you hard, right? If I had the same feeling I got from an orgasm that I got from eating a steak, I wouldn't make it through one bite, right? I'd be like,
exactly, yeah. So I guess
it's the way that it hits you.
Up. Yeah, it's the same way. Like, so for the drug addicts, like I was heroin user. Heroin gave me the same dopamine spike if I shot it up or if I snorted it. But when I shoot it up, it hit me instantly. So I'm hit with that huge number right off the rip instead of waiting for it to go 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 700. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But speaking of that, so like the lower tier dopamine spikes are going to be like alcohol and marijuana. And those are from 250 to 350.
Okay.
So well over that 100 still.
Yeah, still well over. Yeah, multiple times over.
Then when we talk about those dopamine spikes, they did a really cool study. I guess it's probably been about 10 years ago now, with a functional MRI machine. So basically, they can watch your brain activities in real time. So they learn like where our disease lives, the craving sector. So it's in our reptilian part of our brains. There's a big word for that part of our brain. Don't know it. Reptilian part. And that's where our survival skills are, survival needs, fight or flight. That's where that lives. And they took 3 groups of people. They took the first group, they went without any water for 3 days. Long time without water. They put them in that machine. They told them to think about drinking water, played water noises, had them put water in their mouth, spit it out. They watched that craving receptor of their brain. It lit up to the size of a baseball. In reality, about the size of a pinhead, but think scaling measures, think baseball. The second group of people, they got to the first stage of starvation. So I think it's like 10 days with no food. And they had them in that same MRI machine. They told them to think about food, fantasize about their food, take it by their favorite food, spit it out, loft food smells into it. And they watched that craving symptom. It lit up to the size of a basketball. So that's how you know you crave food more to survive than water. The third group of people were addicts, right? It was actually opiates and alcohol were their drug of choices. They're all from 1 year clean to 3 years clean of complete abstinence as well. There's no like MAT treatment, none like that happening in this place. This is a complete abstinence. That craving receptor of their brain, when they told them, think about the last time you did your drug of choice and the first time, lit up to the size of a baseball field. So that's how much more that addict is craving drugs over somebody starving is craving food. Society has fully accepted what somebody is willing to do if they're starving to get food.
Yeah.
I always give the example of Aladdin. The start of that movie is Aladdin stealing a piece of bread because he's homeless, he's starving. He was to feed him and his monkey a chew, right? Is that his name? I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah.
But like, and nobody bats an eye at that. People understand it. Like, he's starving to death. He stole that food. Nobody's saying that's the biggest piece of shit scumbag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's starving, right? Our brains are put us in that same mode when we're craving drugs. The reality is, though, I don't need drugs to survive, right? And that's where like the stigma will start coming from, right? It's hard to understand why somebody's doing something so horrible, right? Because I'll speak for myself. I did very horrible things in my active addiction to get my drug. And it's because leading up to getting that drug, my brain is saying, go get this or you will die. Everything else cannot play a factor. You have to get this no matter what. Because I know if I'm starving to death or dying of thirst and I see a cheeseburger and a cup of water there and some guy steps in front of me and goes, you can't have it, I'm stabbing him and I'm taking it, right? Now amplify that to a baseball field, right?
Yeah.
And that's how like our brain is. But that's that chemical change that's just happened inside of our brain. Because it doesn't just change our survival skills, it just gave us a number one. Drugs came before showering, before eating, before my loved ones, before sex, before everything. Drugs were my number one. Because it classified now as my number one survival skill.
Yeah. That make it's just really interesting because it does, that part of that brain, that reptilian part of the brain, right? That's all that part of the brain cares about is survival. Fight or flight, the amygdala, fight or flight, faint, fawn, right? That's and that like you said, it passed down from our ancestors out in the wild getting chased by animals that were going to kill them.
So you don't think logically, you don't think anything.
No.
Like all you think about getting this to survive. You act solely off impulse.
Yeah.
There's no rational thinking, nothing. It's just, I got to get this. This is what I got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that when that amygdala is fired up, that reptilian part of the brain's fired up, the frontal cortex goes offline.
Oh yeah.
It's
not activated.
Right. It's not activated. I remember one thing they asked us in treatment, have you guys ever heard of your partner saying, weren't you thinking about me when you were doing this? And the scientific answer is no, I was not, because my frontal cortex was not online. My reptilian brain was online and firing.
Right. That's where, like, you don't think about the consequences.
You don't think about the consequences. Exactly.
I remember, I don't know where I heard this from or I saw it, but I know it was in a treatment center, like me as a client. And they're talking about, like, if somebody had a gun to your head and said, it's a revolver, he says there's 3 bullets out of 6 in this gun. Does their whole Russian roulette thing, puts it to your head, says, if you use that heroin, I'm going to pull the trigger. Your brain instantly still goes to, what I'm going to do if I don't have a bullet. Like, it might not shoot me. I might be good. Or if it does, I'm going to try to get high before the trigger goes in.
Yeah.
And that's that addict mindset, because we're thinking that back. We're not thinking of anything like, well, we could just wait an hour till he's away, then I could do the heroin. Whatever it is. It don't work. We don't think that far ahead. It's right there in the moment, right then and now. That's all that matters.
Very
and
compulsive.
Yep. And that use is our number. The use is our number one. We want to get that. And that's where like I kind of take this group now into, because the other two most common words in a treatment facility, I guess three would be urges, triggers, and cravings, right? And coping skills, right?
Yeah.
Take away cravings, put that with coping skills. So those are the three most common words ever. I'm not the biggest fan of trigger because like I'm a believer that everything's a trigger. I don't need to know my triggers. Everything is, right? And then we teach, well, we don't really, but most treatment centers, we do it the Jacob's way. But most treatment centers, they say when you have a craving or urge, use a coping skill. But when I have a craving and urge, it means that my brain is right there at the cups of my survival skills. It's down there by my reptilian brain, and my frontal lobe's not activated, right? I'm not going to get there. It's hard. Like the most common thing you hear ever in recovery is when I wanted to call somebody to help me, and my phone weighed 10 million pounds. I couldn't pick it up. It weighs 10 million pounds because my brain is locked out behind me in my reptilian part. It's not in my frontal lobe. It ain't thinking rationally. So when I started thinking about that, because for me personally, all of my relapses, I knew coping skills. I waited till I had an urge and I got horse blinders on. I said, fuck that, I'm getting high.
Yeah.
Every single time. And every time I've ever relapsed, besides my last one, was very much a impulse, just go get it, split of a thought. It wasn't like brewing for a long time, but I was never in recovery either. Keep that in mind. It was just like dry drunking it till fuck it, get high.
Yeah.
It's too late. So I started looking at, well, I need a coping skill to my coping skills. Like, what can I do to make a coping skill actually stick or make me want to do it or have the rational thinking to do it? So that's when I started looking just like at triggers and everything in general. I usually do this on a whiteboard and draw like a really shitty brain.
It's not great. Yeah, it's not great.
It's a horrible.
It's not
It's
great.
a cloud. It's a mushroom. It's something. It's not a brain, but I put it in 3 sections for us. So just everything in life that happens to us is an event. Me talking to right now is an event that's happening in our lives. No matter what, every event's going to trigger emotion, right? So I'm going to give you an example of my addict brain right now. So my addict brain, everything that happened. So say I just got horrible news, right? Something bad just happened. It triggers my emotion of sadness, anger, disgust, whatever that negative quotations for you.
Uncomfortable.
There you go. Put that in there for you. Uncomfortable emotion kicks in. I used over it.
Yeah.
Right. So then think of, I got good news. Just got a promotion at work, had a graduation, something great, birthday. Something good just happened. I have a comfortable emotion. Working on it for you, Alex.
There you go. Thanks, Jakob.
Comfortable emotion of happiness, joyful. I want to celebrate. I want to get high.
Yep.
Right. I'm bored. I got nothing going on today. I'm gonna get high. It's sunny outside. I'm gonna go barbecue. I want to hang out with some friends. Go to the river. Whatever it is. I'm gonna get fucked up while I do that. It's fucking raining outside. Right. Can't go out. Can't do nothing. Might as well just stay home and get fucked up. Well, now it's nighttime. I want to go to bed. Well, I gotta get high to go to sleep. I wake up in the morning. Well, I gotta get high to get normal to go to work, right, or do whatever. I got high for everything.
Yeah.
So I don't need to know the event because events don't matter. I need to know the emotions behind me getting high, and every emotion I've ever had my whole life I used. So my coping skills need to start with the emotions, not with the urge, not the craving. When I get there, it's too gone. I'm too gone, right? So when I'm happy, I should do a coping skill. When I'm sad, I should do a coping skill. When something great happens in my life, I should do a coping skill. When something horrible happens, when it's fucking Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I should do a coping skill because those are when I got high. And when I started looking at the brain, one of the beautiful things I learned about it is that it's hackable. I can make my brain do what I want if I know how to do it.
Yeah.
And I learned this by watching a documentary on like Navy SEALs. During their boot camp, they were drowning them, bringing them up, give them CPR, bring them back to life. And they started asking them complicated math problems. Like, why the fuck are they doing that? That's insane. So I looked into a little bit more further, and then what they're doing is they want to train them and create their brain to have neural pathways that when they're in fight or flight and like thinking they're going to die, to go to their frontal lobe and think with problem solving and rational thinking, right? Because that's a good soldier, right?
Yeah.
They're going to die, but they can still think rationally, problem solve, get through it. Well, in the addict's brain, our brains are doing the same thing. So what we need to do is start doing problem solving skills. alphabet backwards, multiplication tables, right? Something on those terms, and it kicks our brain to our frontal lobe. That's not a coping skill. That's the coping skill to a coping skill. Because now if I do that, if I do some multiplication tables in my brain, breathing exercises are very good for this as well. You do that, it kicks your brain over to your frontal lobe. And now when I want to call my sponsor or somebody to help me, my phone don't weigh 1,000,000 pounds anymore. It makes sense to do it now. I can think rationally a bit. I don't want to get high, man. I got to do something to stop this. It makes sense to make that phone call. So we want to learn those little coping skills so we can actually do a real coping skill, right? And then that's the next part we want to learn too, that like this is one of my biggest ignorance failings, you want to call it. I always believed they told me to do a coping skill. If I do the coping skill, I'm good. Coping skills don't work that way, right? Coping skills are a practice. So the first time you do a coping skill, whatever it is, it might only give you 3 seconds a piece.
It's going to be clunky. Just like your first time working out. 100%. It was terrible, right? 100%. First time podcasting, I was like, what am I doing,
It's a practice. You got to do it. So you're going to give 4 or 5 seconds. Well, do it again. And do it again. And then you're going to have 10 seconds, 20 seconds. Keep doing it. Then you get a minute when you do it. Keep doing it. Now you have 20 minutes when you do it. Keep doing it. Now you get a whole day, right?
Yeah.
I'll use my eyes. I gave up on coping skills, right? When the first time I did it, I don't feel better, right? That didn't work. On to the next one. And then I get that case of this disease that we have that gives us this uniqueness saying like, well, that don't work for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How many times do you hear that in a day? Well, that don't work for me.
So many.
No, you haven't worked it. That's the reality of the situation, right? You got to keep doing it, and build up those muscles in our brain and keep doing it. Because each time you do it, it creates a new neural pathway.
Yeah.
It makes your neural pathway stronger to your frontal lobe.
100%.
Because in addiction, especially early recovery, we got a 1,000,000-lane highway going to use when it comes to any of our emotions or anything. And we have this small little dirt road going to our frontal lobe.
Yeah.
So that's just that repeated behavior and the repeat of the coping skills and just doing them all the time. Even when you don't feel a type of way.
Yeah.
Do them anyhow.
Yeah. Like what's coming to my head is like 90 and 90.
Yeah. 100%.
Like 90 and 90, right? Like you may not get everything. It's not about necessarily what you're getting out of the meetings. It's the practice of going to a meeting, no matter what.
Doing it, yeah.
Go to a meeting so that now I'm out of my 90 and 90 and I need to find a new meeting. I go on vacation. I need to find a new meeting. I'm not so afraid to walk into a room that I don't know. And now I'm like, okay, cool. I can go do this because I just spent 90 days going to 90 different meetings.
90 and 90 is one of like the best advice you can do in early recovery. Because I believe so much in 90 and 90. 90 days create a habit, right? We hear that all the time. Go to meetings for 90 days. Now you have a habit of going to meetings.
Yeah.
It also makes it so you branch out and go to meetings. So I go to a meeting on a Tuesday and I don't like it. I go to the next Tuesday, I go to a different meeting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So by the end of the 90 and 90, I should have a meeting that I enjoy for every night of the week.
Yeah.
So if I feel a type of way on a Sunday, I remember that meeting when I did my 90 and 90. I like that when I'm going there, right? And it also builds up our baseline for our recovery.
Yeah.
Because one thing about 90-90, I do see people mess up, at least in my opinion, right? I thought my opinion on there is that we do 90 and 90 on day 91 to 100. We don't go to a meeting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like, okay, I went to a meeting every single day. Now I'm going to go to one a week.
Yeah.
This is like when you have to like taper yourself off of meetings to find your illness level, I guess you could call it, or your recovery level. So like when I did my 90 and 90, went to 90 meetings, so 7 days a week. When I finished it, that next week I went to 6, right? Did 6 meetings that week. I felt all right, felt good, still wasn't positive, wasn't trying to take back, my self-control, nothing like that. Next week went to 5 meetings, felt good, everything good, went to 4 meetings. At 4 meetings, I started getting irritable, started just not liking things for no reason, right? We've all been irritable before. It starts kicking in, agitated a lot. Like, oh, this ain't working out. Gotta go back up to 6. Do that for a while. Then go back to 5, down to 4, down to 3. Oh, I'm getting irritable again. Okay, I need 4. 4 is my level. Right now, my recovery, 4 meetings is what's going to keep me in remission. Then 3. That's how you get your meeting amount. Right?
I've never heard anybody explain it in that way, and I really like that explanation.
Because we're addicts, so we want to go all or nothing, right? And it's just, you see a lot of relapse. Like that's why I'm sure you've seen it now working in treatment, you've been in recovery a long time. Most relapse happen right after 90 days.
Yeah.
Right. You see it all the time. You get those people like I call them repeat offenders. I was a repeat offender. 90 days relapse, 90 days relapse, 90 days relapse. Because they go so gung-ho recovery for 90 days and then they just stop.
Yeah.
Right. They quit doing it.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to find our baseline, our levels, right? That there is my disease of addiction group.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's really good, man. No, I appreciate you coming on. Yeah, now it's recorded. Now it's out there, man. Now we'll throw it out to the world and see what they think about it, man.
Right, yeah, hopefully they're gonna get a lot of criticism or good stuff, hopefully it helps a lot of people.
Hopefully it does. It makes sense.
That helps me so much in my recovery, just like learning my symptoms. I remember my earliest relapse sign, my earliest symptoms, irrational thinking.
Yeah.
And it always comes with very negative self-beliefs on myself. I'm a complete failure. That's like my number one, or I'm a fucking moron. That's my number two. It's always one of those two typically. And it starts coming out through action and compulsiveness through road rage. Very irrational anger comes out of me. I'm driving home, somebody not even cuts me off, just gets in front of me and they're going 2 miles slower than I was. I get pissed.
Yeah.
That's road rage. I fucking get a really irrational anger. I don't need to get mad over that. That's nothing but I blow the fuck up, cuss it out in my car. And then I get home. I remember really early recovery, figuring, I guess it was like a year or two in. And my daughter was 3 at the time. And she would like spill a cup. And I would get so fucking pissed off. So mad. I wouldn't like yell at her. You know, I've still had a lot of horrible resentment towards myself as a dad from using. So I didn't yell at my kid, right? Yeah, those stuff to work through still. Go in the bathroom, I'll rage in a pillow, just be so mad. And the reality is she's just doing what a 3-year-old does.
Yeah.
There's no reason I should be mad at a 3-year-old doing what a 3-year-old does. That's nothing. That's when I started to notice, well, earlier that day I had road rage. So I kind of connected those two. And I said the road rage, and that stemmed from me thinking I'm like a failure and I've had a hard day at work. So I'm just down on myself. So when I had that first thought, I started doing like a speaker tape on my drive home that day. I would call extra somebody in recovery and talk to them, right? I started taking my medicine right then for that symptom. Then when I got home, my daughter still spilled a drink and I wasn't mad because I handled the symptom early on, right? And that's why like learning these symptoms and working on them is so beneficial, because then you find out what happens earlier and earlier, and then you just keep that disease in remission. But you've got to find, because the way I'm irrational is going to be different than you.
Sure.
The way I'm obsessed is going to be different than you. What's going to work for me is going to be different than what works for you. But it all still stems from those same symptoms.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So just identifying those, and like, I very much have to call it what it is.
Yeah.
That is my relapse. Right. If I'm in that type of mindset, I can't say, oh, I'm struggling a little bit. Like, no, I'm in relapse mode. This is fucking serious. Because at the end of that relapse is death. Yeah. Right. When that period hits down for me, I'm going to fucking die.
Yeah.
So I have to treat that irrational thought of I'm a complete failure as the same way I'm going to take dying. It's that serious to me. And I very much want to focus on that side of things. And then also learning all this too taught me that I'm not a heroin addict. I'm an addict. I have a dopamine problem, right? The drug does not matter. My brain don't know the difference from a Percocet, the heroin, the meth. All it knows, the sex, using it, all it knows is that made me feel good. It's outside of myself. It filled this void inside of me a bit. I want it more, more, more. I have a dopamine problem.
Yeah.
So I have to be self-aware of all that dopamine spikes that I get. A drug is a drug. I'm a firm believer, like, I don't go by drug of choices unless you're talking about detoxing, right? Because that's what it does matter. Afterwards, just a drug is a drug, right? Sex, drug, same thing. And as soon as, if I start thinking of them differently, I start justifying some shit.
Yep. Or I isolate myself from people around me because, oh, you're different than me.
Right.
You're different. Because we hear that too, right? Like, oh, I'm not, an alcoholic says I'm not a junkie, at least I'm not, well, yet.
Yeah. And then, because like it also in my recovery, like I've probably craved doing heroin in my recovery 10 times. Yeah. In the last over 8 years, 10 times thought about doing heroin. I've thought about drinking and smoking weed 1 million times. Because my brain classifies them as a lesser tier drug, right? Weed's not as bad as heroin. Well, for me, it is. They are the same thing. So I have to go, a drug is a drug.
Yeah.
And what I have to as well start looking at, the drug is the consequence, I guess you could say.
Yes.
Because I'll be honest with you, I can justify getting high. I can make using in my sick brain sound like a great idea. I can do that. What I can't do, though, is I can't justify my daughter not having her dad. Can't justify that. I can't think of one good reason in my life today why my daughter should be burdened with not having her father.
Yeah.
So if I do ever think about getting high, that is what I have to accept. I got to say, I am willing to make my daughter not have a dad. I am willing to go rob my mother. I am willing to make her cry every single night because she's worried her son's going to be dead.
Yeah.
I have to say, I am okay with sleeping in Vacos again. Like, I can't justify it. I can't find a rhyme or reason for anything in my life why that is a good idea.
Yeah.
But I can use it because I have a sick brain.
Yeah.
So I really have to work on that word exchange or however you want to call it. So if I say I want to get high, I want to do weed, no, I got to do a drug. Drugs make my daughter not have a dad. I don't want my daughter not to have a dad, so therefore I don't get high. Right? Like, I have to do that in my brain. If we want to be isolated as these individual things, well, that's not as bad. We start justifying it, right? Rationalize thinking it that way. And I can't do that. Whoever I'm talking to, whoever's hearing it, I don't want to offend you, but you can't do it either. It's not worth the risk.
So now, because this really does go along with the stages of relapse.
Yeah.
Right. 3 stages of relapse: emotional, mental, and then physical. And what I loved that you touched on, like, the emotional side of things, because I'm a big believer in that, right? That the emotions, that's kind of my brand. That's my stick. That's my alley. And I'm a firm believer of, like, when I'm talking to guys, right? It's the situation, whatever happened, and you kind of said this, was whatever happened to make me feel a certain way, that doesn't matter, right? Like, the emotional intelligence cell tells me, okay, hey, that happened. Like, when I talk to my guys and they tell me something bad happens, right?
Yeah.
Then I'll ask them, well, how did that make you feel?
Right.
Right. And then if they're stuck on the situation, I'm like, no. The situation's to the side now. We talked about the situation. You told me the situation. That's why I'm asking you how you feel. Now let's talk about how you feel. What's the narratives in your head? What's going on inside of you with the feelings and the emotions? I don't care about the situation anymore. But then I'll get a guy that keeps going on and on about the situation. And it's like, stop, hold on a second. Let's bring this back here. I don't care about the situation. It's how did it make you feel?
Right.
And what are you doing about it?
And that's how we get to our solution to it all, right? Because if we hung up on the vent, that's outside of us. Like, I get told a lot, which I don't know if you've said it to me, honestly. A lot of people call me emotionalist type of person.
I don't think I've ever said that to you. I think you've just admitted it to me.
Well, the thing, like, I have all the emotions.
Yeah. You wouldn't be a human without them.
Exactly. Well, I might not be. So that's my fiance. She'll tell you otherwise. But it's just that I've accepted that I have them.
Yeah.
I don't fight emotions. I don't project my emotions. I know if I feel sad, it's okay to feel sad.
Yeah.
I don't need to make a fuss about it. Like, when it's bad enough, I talk to people. Like, I always talk about them in the right areas of my life. It's not saying this isn't a put them down deep and not address them.
Yeah.
It's I accept them all. Right.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, every emotion we have for a reason. None of it is to hurt us.
No.
None of it is to make us feel a type of, like, horribleness. It's that we're supposed to have it. When I'm depressed, or I'm not depressed, like, sad because I lost someone, it's because I'm grieving them. I'm supposed to feel that way. It's okay. That's where I'm supposed to be. And I love that saying, in, like, at least where I'm from, the recovery community, like, it's okay not to be okay.
100%.
Like,
it's okay. Yep.
It's fine. You're supposed to. It's like when I talk to a client, like, I'm pissed off. Well, yeah, you're supposed to be pissed off.
I'd be surprised if you weren't pissed off right now. I'd be surprised if you were feeling great about being here.
Yeah, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Their wife just divorced them. And they're sad. Well, yeah, man.
That's okay.
You're supposed to be sad. That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
You being sad means that you're fucking coming back to the human race. Welcome. You know, you don't have to feel it.
Yes.
Get through it. And once you get through it, you learn that you don't have to use over it. You learn that you can go through negative things in your life and come out better on the other end. Right?
Yeah.
I remember finding that out for the first time in recovery. Like, I can go through hardship. If I do it the correct way and face my emotions and just live in them and go with them, at the end of it, I'm a better person.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
When I stuff them down, when I avoid them, when I try to, like, do something outside of myself to fix them, I'm worse.
Yeah.
But if I just go through the emotions and accept my emotions for what they are, just emotions, I get better.
And, you know, I think society, and this is, I believe June is Men's Mental Health Awareness.
Yeah.
So, like, think about the tape around growing up being a guy.
Right.
You got to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody in my life ever told me it's okay to not be okay, Alex. Right? It's like, no, you're a guy. Suck it up.
Yeah, if you're not mad or happy,
you better be
you
okay.
don't exist.
Yes.
And in my opinion, like, this is saying the same thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't need to make my sadness the end of the world and be like a full victim mode.
Right.
You know what I mean? That a lot of us have done, I have done. You don't have to do that.
Irrational thoughts.
Yeah. A man is somebody that goes through their emotions, right?
Yeah.
I used to work with like Hell's Angel biker clients and all this stuff. And I remember talking to them like about emotions. Like, you're supposed to have them. You got to go through them. And I asked one of them, like, I want your full honest thoughts. When you watch a man go talk to another man and say, I'm upset, I'm struggling right now in life, I need help, what do you think about them? He'll say that they're courageous. That's a brave man that did that. Can't, like, the balls he has to admit that stuff. I said, now what do you think of yourself when you do it? I'm a pussy. I'm a failure. I'm nothing.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's like, we got to take away that irrational thinking we put on us, right? You are that brave, courageous man when you do it. You're a man now when you do that type of stuff. Men are so quick to put that on somebody else when they do it. That guy is amazing. He's courageous. I wish I could do that. Then as soon as you are stepped up and you should do it, you're like, well,
I can't do that.
People are going to think I'm a pussy.
I can't do that. I can't show that.
Like, we got to look at ourselves what you look at somebody else, right? And that was, I watched Hell's Angel bikers when they finally get that, break down in tears. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that's how you're a man. Mm-hmm. Men don't hide their feelings and run from them. They face them. They deal with them. I will say, like, the triggering words are, you buck the fuck up and you face your emotions. You don't buck the fuck up and avoid them. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. That's how you go home and drink yourself to death or beat your wife or some bullshit. Mm-hmm. And that's not a man stuff to do. Right. Yeah. So it's the same concept, but we got to look at through the lens of what we look at somebody else doing it. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That makes sense, man. Yeah, that's so happy mental health awareness month from two guys who will sit down and talk about their feelings. Go talk about your feelings.
Yes.
Go find a safe, trusted individual and talk about your feelings. Don't just say I'm mad or sad. Glad or mad. That's what one guy told me one time. Those are the only two that I feel. Mad or glad. Well, you got more than that in there. You're just not feeling them.
You're just emotionally ignorant.
So
that was me though.
And that was me. And that was me too. That was me too, right? I wasn't, it's almost like I wasn't allowed to show anything other than joy and confidence.
Right. Like, one thing about me, like, if you meet somebody that knew me with, like, most of my active addiction, like, I was an angry human being. I ran on anger all the time. I feel like I'm a very calm, collective human today, but I used to run on so much anger. And I always like, why am I so mad? Why am I so mad? Then actually through that trauma therapy that I did at that treatment center, it wasn't that I was mad. I was confused.
You were scared.
Yes.
Confusion is fear, right? Fear and sadness combined, anger.
I'm angered.
Yeah.
So once I started getting more
which is a defense mechanism,
100%,
right? It's the unhealthy coping mechanism of dealing with these things. I'm just going to be angry,
right? And I didn't know. I thought anger was the only emotion, So once I started being like emotionally educated, I'll call it.
Yeah.
Well, I know how to fix my confusion. I can look into it more. I can study. I can see why. That's kind of how this group formed, right? Because I can't look at a textbook and I can't study all these big words because my brain I'm dyslexic. I don't do well learning that way. So I started looking at my own way of learning and my own way of doing it. And I learned that really through working my steps. I had a really dickhead sponsor. And I remember when I first got clean, I couldn't read or write. Like, I couldn't read out loud to save my life, but it was fucking hard. And my writing was letters were so backwards and mixed up. It was illegible. I couldn't read it after I wrote it. I remember telling my sponsor, I'm like, hey, I'm working on step 1. And I'm like, hey, I can't really write and shit. Like, my brain don't work that way. I'm fucked up from it. Can I just tell you my answers? Can we just go with the answers? I just tell him. Sounds like a very reasonable request, right? He said, no, write it. Actually, write it twice. He made me write all my steps 2 times. But doing that made me practice. It made me get through it, right? And when we went over the steps, we couldn't read it. So I was basically just answering it anyhow, right? They always just forced me to write it, which then forced me how to learn how to write again, learn me how to read again.
Take some actions.
It's just doing that type of work over and over.
Over and over. Repetition.
100%.
Especially in early recovery, is good for us.
Oh, yes.
It's very good for us. It is very repetitive. Well, Jakob, man, thank you so much for coming on and sharing that with me and the audience, man. And if you guys want to check out their podcast, it's Pond Offs Anonymous on YouTube, on Spotify. And as always, No Lions here on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, everywhere you can stream. If there's any topics that you want to hear me discuss on the show, please feel free to reach out. nolionshere@gmail.com. And as always, keep coming back. It works if you work it, and you're worth it. We'll see you guys next time. No,